All right. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I hope all is going well. This is Matt Javit with Nikki Javit. Today is a fun podcast for Passport Joy. We are back in the States after traveling for 800 days around the world. And part of being back is we are making some rounds in the Midwest, seeing friends and family, hanging out a little bit. And this podcast is a two-part Q&A for my buddy Mike Poulter. We were in Youngstown, Ohio, and Mike got a bunch of very creative questions, and we exchanged over some drinks at a spot called Sam's Wedge Inn in Austintown, Ohio, and we had a great time just picking our brains on some fun things. So you might get loud at sometimes, might hear some background, but we're at a nice little bar in Austintown, Ohio, and just hanging out with my buddy Mike and some other folks. So stay tuned for that. I think that you will enjoy this fun episode. If you're just getting caught up, again, we are a traveling couple. We did it for over 2 years. Left February of 2017, came back in May of 19, and lived out of a backpack apiece and had a chance to see 35 countries, over 100 cities, and a ton of sites, and met a great number of amazing people along the way. And this podcast is really dedicated to hoping to help you travel better, whether it's a weekend getaway, a week-long vacation, or if you're looking to do something like we did and take a 6 months off or a year or whatever you might be planning to do. Hopefully we can help you in some way. And we really appreciate all the feedback we get from people that we really don't know. And they'll reach out and say, hey, you're inspiring in some capacity, but I'm planning a trip. Can you help me with X? And we respond to that stuff all the time. We've even gotten on phone calls with strangers, if you will. So please continue to give us that feedback. We really appreciate it. And drop questions, because now that we're in a transition phase, we definitely want to help any of those that want to achieve a goal like we had and live around the world and see how beautiful this world is. As normal, everything's in the show notes. This episode as well, we talk about a few things. I put those in the show notes. You can go to passportjoy.com, click on the podcast tab, and under each episode, you will find different show notes that'll help you with your journey. So you can go through there if you want to listen to other podcasts, maybe some destinations you're thinking about traveling to. You can go to the website and find those real easy. And you can also find out all the places we've been on our journey, month by month, country by country. We list them all out. All right. If you haven't done so already, pick up Nikki's book on Amazon for your Kindle. It's called Passport Joy: Reflections on Life, Love, and Other Stuff While Traveling the World. And also check out the Barbershop series, World Barbershop Adventures. That's on YouTube. That's a visual component. Me and barber chairs around the world. We have over 20 cities now around the world where I sit in a barber chair, get an amazing cut, but also show the culture of the cities that we're in. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into this fun episode with Mike Poulter interviewing us at an awesome little bar in Austintown, Ohio. All right, we are in Austintown, Ohio, which is part of Youngstown. We're at the Sam's Wedge Inn bar, hanging out with my buddy Mike, a longtime friend of mine. He's going to ask us some questions that he's gathered about our journey, and Nikki and I are going to do our best to work through them. So here you go, Mike.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Poulter. I've been friends with Matt since he was in the 7th grade. So I've gathered some questions here from some of the fans of Matt and Nikki's Passport Joy podcast. The first question is, if there was a movie made about your 800-day journey, what would the movie title be and who would play you? Matt, you're first.
The movie, the movie title would be, maybe Passport Joy or Crazy Mid-Career Break or something like that. But who would play me? I've always loved Vince Vaughn because he's tall like me. He's a funny guy.
Channing Tatum, because that's who you look like.
Thanks, Nick. Channing Tatum. I'd go shirtless if I was him. But Vince Vaughn probably.
I would call it Passport Joy because that's just like the go-to. I don't know who I'd have play me because I don't think anyone looks like me. But I guess maybe... I like Rose Byrne. She does not even look like me. I would say Shailene Woodley. Do you know who that is? Yeah, she played in The Fault in Our Stars, and plus in real life, she is a traveler and she like sold all of her stuff, and she went to India for like 3 months and like packed like 2 pairs of yoga pants and like 2 long sleeve shirts and like did it right. So I'd have her play me because she's like the real deal and she's badass.
That'd be super awkward because they're like 20 years difference.
But I look that young.
Great answer. Great answer. Number 2, this question is for Nikki, and it comes from my 20-year-old daughter, Caitlin. Nikki, what was the most important item in your backpack? And did you bring a lot of makeup and face cream?
Okay, so for me, the most important item in my backpack, and I think probably for Matt as well, but I don't want to speak for him. I don't know exactly the technical name for it, but essentially what they are like packing cubes. And I've never before the travel had used them. So they're cubes, and you put all of your clothes in them as much as you can possibly put in these little cubey things. They're like dividers also, but they're packing cubes. And when you zip them up or put them together, they kind of like compress all your clothes down so you create more space inside of your bag. And I'd never, ever used anything like that before. So essentially what it is like you're not folding your clothes up or rolling your clothes up and then like rooting through your bag for like your shirt or whatever it is. You just know inside that one cube, I have all my shirts and my pants, and my next cube, I have all my underwear and my bras and stuff like that. So I just used 2 cubes and I put everything inside those 2 cubes, and then everything else surrounded it, like my shoes and whatever. So those were my most important things, and I will never, ever travel without those again, because currently right now, I was like, you know what? I'm sick of looking at these cubes, and I'm not going to use that for my current travels. And I'm like totally regretting it because I'm literally rooting through my suitcase right now, and I can't find anything. So packing cubes for sure. And then the makeup question. So I don't wear a lot of makeup just in like normal life in general. And I made the decision. So normally what I only wear is like a bronzer and mascara. And in order to use my bronzer, I have to use like a face brush. And then in order to take it off, I have to have face wash and oil cleanser and all types of stuff. So I opted not to wear makeup. So I didn't wear makeup at all for 27 months. And so no makeup. The only thing I ever put on my face every single day was sunscreen, just so I wouldn't get burnt. And I'm like super, super paranoid about getting wrinkles on my face. So all I did was put Neutrogena sunscreen on my face every day, SPF 50.
All right, this is question number 3. After traveling to so many different places, what is the one thing that Americans take for granted?
So in my opinion, I think a never-ending supply of clean hot water, in my opinion. And I would say specifically for drinking and showering, because a lot of places that we went to, either water for drinking is not safe, and you have to make sure that to brush your teeth and to drink that you would have to buy bottled water. And then for showering in general, even when you're showering, to make sure that you keep your mouth closed while you're showering so you're not getting ill. And then even when you're showering, like in general, that you're not, or when you're showering in general, that you're getting a hot shower. I went weeks at a time when I was taking an ice cold shower just because hot water is not available. And then in some places and countries, just the norm is taking what we would call like a bucket shower, where you are trying to conserve hot water. So you're filling up a very large bucket and then taking a smaller bucket and splashing that warm or lukewarm water over your body. So at home, we become just so accustomed to taking a nice, warm, hot, long shower, shaving our legs, indulging it, and like in this long hot shower, and times I would find myself taking like a 15-minute long shower, and I can't even tell you the last time I did that. But yeah, so I think clean hot water is something that we take for granted.
Yeah, and I would just say economic opportunity, just the idea that there's a lot of chances to make money in the U.S., where in a lot of these countries there's not. They're dealt the hand they're dealt, and a lot of it is a dead end. And even if, no matter how much education they might have, they're still going to be set in a situation where it's going to be very difficult to get out of. And I think as Americans, we don't really understand how lucky we are just live in this country and to have some of the freedoms and then the opportunities that we have on a day-to-day basis.
Great answers. The 4th question is, through your travels, what is the overall attitude towards Westerners?
Very positive. I think that a lot of the world looks to the U.S. and some of the stronger countries for economic, as we are like a power for economy. It flows throughout the world. So I remember having these different conversations. We're in South America with taxi drivers and whatnot, and they're just root endlessly for the U.S. to do well, because in the end, if we're doing well, then that means more travelers. That means just more prosperity for other parts of the world. And that was echoed over and over as we traveled. The idea that they just want to see us do well. And they look at our culture very much so, whether it's movies, music, they're watching us. There's a lot of times where we'd meet people that knew more about what's going on in America than I did, because they watch us so closely and they try to mock everything that we're doing in our society. So I guess that was a common theme.
The next question is, what is the overall attitude towards the President of the United States, Donald Trump? Not being a very political person per se, but what does, through your travels for the last 800 days, when you run into people, do they bring up the President of the United States, or do they talk about Trump a lot?
Yeah, it was a common question. If we got in comfortable situations with people, that sometimes it would lead to a political. And Nick and I, we try to avoid that as much as possible. As we traveled, we did watch. I'd watch Twitter and just to see the headlines, just to understand what was going on at a very high level. But we attempted to avoid those conversations. But for the most part, countries would. The theme was kind of common. The theme would be like, he's pretty crazy, but a lot of countries would say, but we like him because it seems like things are going well. Or if you were in a country that had a bit of stability, they would say things like, we wish we had somebody like that would have like an iron fist, or would want our country to be more powerful than what we are. So I guess the perception would be that he is only thinking about America and he's not thinking about the rest of the world. And they would see that as, man, I wish somebody would look at our country that way and try to put us in a certain light. But in the end, when you're talking about his social media stances, the theme was common about, I mean, just just the crazy tweets and adolescent point of views that he has and stuff like that. I think everybody kind of recognizes that part of it.
Now, I had talked to you guys about this before, and I know some of the answers, but traveling for the last 800 days sounds awesome, but did you guys ever get sick of each other?
Oh my gosh. I would say initially, yes. I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say that we didn't, or that we didn't. But you find ways, like after a while, to, have your own space. And I think initially what it was that we were so accustomed to our life before, where we had our separate spaces and our things that we did. And, Matt had his job, I had my job, and we had our friends that we hung out with. And then we were thrown into this environment where we were sharing very close quarters, and we were in a foreign country, and we didn't know anyone, and we didn't have friends. And, we had to create just a new space for ourselves. So we just picked up new hobbies and figured out what would work for us. And sometimes we would find ourselves in the same small space, but we would just figure out, what worked for us so we could enjoy that small space together without feeling like we were on top of each other. So I learned how to read books with him in the same room, or listen to music, or watch a movie. And I think the big thing that changed for me is that I started to really enjoy quiet time. And we don't need to be in a room together and talk 24/7. I mean, I could be in the same space with him for 5 hours and not say a word. So I think that is really important. And I think that took us through the whole 27 months. And, there'd be days when he would just get up and leave and go on a hike, or I would get up and just go out and run some errands. And it was just creating our own space and not always being on top of each other, and then just figuring that out and going from there.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I don't know about getting sick of being around Nicky, but it's more of like I missed my dudes. So I'm such a guy's guy, and I love like my poker nights, my bourbon nights, smoking cigars. I love being around my guys, watching sports. And so it wasn't as much as like filling our time together with so much, but it was more like, man, I just want to be able to
go hang out with my guys. So it was less about her, but more about just being around other people. But yeah, we figured it out. I mean, there was highs and lows, and we had our fights, and we figured it out. And that's the craziest thing about when you know you got to spend 24/7 with somebody in a different country, you tend to overcome arguments really fast because you know that you're in it together. So we were really good at working through things fast.
Okay, the next question. What was the worst experience through your travels, and did you ever fear for your life?
For me, I think mine were injury and illness related. One, I was in Greece and I was taking a picture of a sunset on a rooftop. And there was this like little pipe, or I don't even really know what it was, and it was sticking outside of a rooftop. I didn't realize it, and I turned around and I caught myself when I was going back to go talk to my friends, and I tripped over it. And when I tripped over it, I fell over it, and I caught myself with my wrist and smacked the top of my left kneecap on the rooftop, and I hit my chin. And so my chin had a bruise. I broke my kneecap, and I sprained my wrist. And it took me, I don't remember exactly how long, but I'll just say several months to actually fully recover from that. And to this day, like even kneeling on my left knee really, really hurts. So that was pretty much a bummer. And then I did get a serious infection somehow, somewhere while I was traveling in Europe. I developed a resistant strain of E. coli that invaded my urinary tract system, and I had to go through several rounds of oral antibiotics and eventually had to check myself into a hospital and get IV antibiotics. And all in all, I ended up being on medication for over 7 months. And so that was just a bummer, just having to take medication and just feeling like crap and not my usual self. And, you know, just being scared and not in a familiar environment, and talking to physicians through Google Translate and feeling like no one was really listening to me or understanding me and not really getting the gravity of the situation. But that was just really a bummer for me. But I think your second question was, I don't feel like I've ever feared for my life. I've been in maybe a couple scary situations where I've had some people approach me, but I put myself in those situations knowing that I shouldn't be by myself at a certain particular time or in some certain areas, but I've never feared for my life.
Yeah, I don't think we ever... We had some nights where we'd come home and we'd look at each other like, wow, that was crazy. I think our night in Calcutta, when we walked around the streets of Calcutta in like real Calcutta, India, and we had some weird deals where some guys were asking us to go see some things, and it was a temple. It was really awkward. Yeah, it was late, and it was a weird deal. So there was in Cambodia, I had an instance in this open park area. It was populated. So because there's a lot of people, I wasn't super scared, but the guy had a big trench coat on. I couldn't see what was in his hand, and he followed me for a long period of time. I ended up confronting him in a way, and then I had a local help me get out of the situation. I ended up finding a police officer. But that was it. And there was a dude in Vienna that kind of brushed up on us, and I had to get him off of us. But for the most part, we were extremely fortunate not to run into anything chaos. Yeah, we're definitely head on a swivel. We have code words that we use to make sure that we understood that if we felt somebody was looking at us crazy, we'd remove ourselves. And I think we were really smart about not putting ourselves in dangerous situations. But then again, we did have nights where we'd walk home at 2 a.m. and we did things the next day. We're like, maybe that wasn't the smartest, and we were fine.
We also looked out for each other. So like if one of us was on the cell phone, I would be looking out for Matt. Like if he had to look up directions, we never really had our back towards anything. Like if we had to both be on our cell phones at one time, which is in a rare occasion, we would put our back to a wall and then make sure that we were looking out towards something. We were always looking out for each other. So we tried to be very, very smart about things. You know, if we went out for a night of cocktails or something like that, we would make sure that we would take a taxi home and not walk home. We were definitely trying to follow safety protocols and not be basically a dumb A about things that we were doing while we were traveling. So we knew that we were going to be gone by ourselves and that we didn't have a group of friends that we were traveling with. So we're not going to be stupid about stuff.
Is there a place that both of you would want to go to after retirement, say move to permanently and become do you guys either one of you have similar answers or different answers to that one?
I think that, like, for me, from a business aspect, even pre-retirement, because I still think I'm going to work into my 70s. Even like pre-retirement, Singapore is extremely appealing because it's like the heartbeat of Southeast Asia. There's a lot of opportunity there. You know, it's a growing rapidly. It's an amazing city. So Singapore would be one. And then as far as like retirement-esque, I mean, these are things just as an outsider, not really understanding how that would go, like Vietnam, Bali, Indonesia, places like that have gorgeous coastlines. The dollar goes really far. Lisbon, Portugal, the dollar goes really far, and it's gorgeous, and the people are amazing. Those would be great places. And then the world's always changing too, so you don't know if political turmoil is going to pop up in the next 20 years. But as of like right now, those places are pretty awesome.
I'd say in addition to those places, which I completely agree with all those that Matt said, the only qualms that I would have with a place like, I mean, I love Vietnam. I was just talking about this with Mike earlier today, is air quality in Southeast Asia is really not that great. And so I was thinking, if I were to move there and live there for a really long period of time, I tend to typically start feeling sick after a couple months. And we did spend like 7 months consecutively. And I start to feel that. So I'm not really sure if I would want to live there later on in life or how that would affect me. But I really did enjoy our time in New Zealand. And I really feel like it's so fresh and so clean, and it's just so nice, and it's beautiful, and you have the best of like all of the worlds there. Like you have the mountains and the ocean and just nature and animals and everything, and the air is just so, you walk outside and you feel like you're just breathing life. But I love Lisbon and Singapore. Although it is in that region, you don't feel like you're breathing in fuel or whatever is floating in the particles of the air out there. But yeah, I do love Da Nang, Vietnam, and I would like to spend some time out there, but I don't know if I could actually live there.
And that is it for this episode. Again, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Again, that's part 1 of 2 Q&A episodes with Mike, and hope you like it. Hope it was a lot of fun for you, and hopefully it answered some unique questions there. So tune in for the second episode of that when it posts. And as always, we really appreciate the opportunity again for new traveler listeners. And the best way to do that is for you to subscribe to this podcast and also give us a review on Apple, or Apple Podcast is really the best way to give us a review. If you can, give us that feedback. We always love hearing feedback, and we appreciate it. I share all the important links that we talked about in today's show notes. That again, that's at passportjoy.com under the podcast tab. I list all the episodes out there that you can check those out, and then hopefully that'll help you travel better wherever you might be going next. If you want to continue to stay updated on things that we're doing and updates we might have, sign up for the weekly newsletter at passportjoy.com. Just put your email address in there, click go, and you'll get a weekly newsletter from us, mostly me, that gives the highlights and just the things we're going through, and also just things I think are important to help you travel better or just have a better life in general. Grab Nikki's book on Amazon for your Kindle. It's called Passport Joy, Reflections on Life, Love, and Other Stuff While Traveling the World. And if you haven't checked it out recently as well, check out the World Barbershop Adventures. You'll see over 20 cities there where I'm in a chair around the world getting a haircut, a shave, a beard trim, but also it highlights the awesome culture. All right, we'll be back next week with part 2 of this. And until then, have safe travels wherever you might be heading next.